the Suzuki DR650. It's a motorcycle that's been around for over 35 years. It's often referred to as the doctor, the tractor, and the bush pig. Could this be the world's best around-the-world machine? Find out in this episode. All right, it's time to get my stamp here in Caracas. Oh, look at that. Perfectamente. Wee-hoo. Now let's see here. Oh, there it is. Caracas. All right, let's see. Today, I want to make it to Tiradentes, and it's somewhere between 65 and 191 kilometers. But I'm going to make a couple of stops on the way at signposts and important cities to get the stamps. There's a celebratory mood because yesterday was Brazil's Independence Day. So let's get with it here in Caracas. I'm glad to have you with me this morning. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you can follow me whenever I release a video and see where I am headed. São João del Rei. This is a little town named after the King of Portugal. Oh, here you go. Centro Histórico. That's what I'm looking for. Beautifully situated in a river valley. The town is hung on one side of the hill. I gotta fix my rear shock because I am bottoming out on those speed bumps. That's the oldest church in St. John, the King. And I heard it's open, so I'm gonna go check it out.
Gearhead, tips, tools, and tech talk.
I want to talk to you about why I decided to go with the Suzuki DR650, old school. I want to give you my reasons, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the modifications that I did. I have been riding a motorcycle around the world since 2018. I want to ride across nations that are rarely visited. I want to go to places that are off the beaten path.
So over the last several years, I've had a chance to ride on many different platforms. The Honda Africa Twin, my personal favorite, the BMW F850 Adventure. While at home, I have been practicing and improving my skills on the KTM 350. I sold that bike and then got the KTM 300. I find more satisfaction and a greater workout when I'm riding off-road. I love off-road. So in the fall of 2021 and in the winter and spring of 2022, I rode my 2019 BMW F850 across the Horn of Africa. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I ran into some mechanical problems with my BMW. Not with the engine. The engine was fantastic, but there were some pretty big potholes, and the roads were the worst I'd ever seen on the planet. Consequently, my rim got bent, and then something happened with the ABS. It caused a catastrophic brake failure, which ended up in a low-speed off. Well, when I tried to remedy the problem, it took me days and weeks in Ethiopia to find a solution. And the only solution that I could find was to remove my front brakes and continue my trip into Djibouti, to Djibouti City, and then end it there. So in one way, my trip was kind of ended prematurely due to the circumstances of my catastrophic brake failure. But it wasn't the brake failure itself. It was the fact that I couldn't source any parts. If anyone is planning on doing an around-the-world trip, parts and supplies and accessibility to them is probably going to be one of the number one factors in determining the choice of a motorcycle. It's not going to be how sexy it is, how many whiz-bang gadgets you've got. In fact, I'll tell you this, in developing world countries, technology is not your friend. What led up to the decision for me to buy the Suzuki DR 650 was the fact that when I was in Southeast Asia in late 2019 and early 2020, before the pandemic hit, I tried renting motorcycles. When I was in Vietnam, I had difficulty finding a motorcycle even big enough to accommodate my bags and camping equipment and video equipment, but I just happened to find someone advertising a Suzuki DR 650. In the pictures, it looked great. Well, when I arrived in Hanoi City and got a taxi to the rental place, I looked at the motorcycle and I thought to myself, wow, this is one beat-up used machine. It was a 2008 rental in Vietnam. Can you imagine? The clutch was loose. The front springs weren't even working because the seals had long been broken, so the springs just rattled. There was numerous other little quirks about it, but after talking to the owner, he gave me some pretty amazing assurances. He said, look, mister, you're not going to have any problem with this motorcycle. And I said, do you realize I want to ride this from Ho Chi Minh City, formerly Saigon, all the way up to Hanoi? That's going to be like 1,700 miles total. And he said, look, you'll have no problem with this motorcycle. If you do, I will meet you on the road. I'll personally fix it. And if I can't, I'll get you to your final destination. So with that guarantee, I rented the motorcycle and took off. Honestly, I really wasn't sure that I was going to make it. But 3 weeks later, the motorcycle just performed. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't sexy, it just did the job. So anyway, I had a great experience. You can check that out on my videos and some of the earlier episodes. I had a great time, had an amazing experience, and the Suzuki in Vietnam performed flawlessly. The pandemic hit. In my hometown in Colorado at the time, the Suzuki dealer decided to have a fire sale on a few of the DRs. I bought it. It was like $1,000 or $1,500 off the retail price. It was really, really hard to beat. I didn't know when I was going to use it or if I was going to use it, but I thought, this is a great bike for me to tinker on, to modify, and to do all kinds of stuff on. So that's where that journey began, and that's a little bit of the backstory. Now let's get to the motorcycle. I installed the Adventure Rally X Rally Tower. If you are familiar with the Suzuki DR650, you will know that the handlebar setup and the light setup really restricts the rider. I stripped off the old headlight and went with the Adventure Rally X Rally Tower because I could add electronics, and most importantly, I could add these dual high-intensity LED lights that literally turn the night into day. You will know that one of the weaknesses of the Suzuki is the headlights. The stock headlight is crap. On this Rally Tower, I have an anti-vibration phone mount, and it is a quad lock system. GPS mount. I have dual USB ports. This is a dummy switch, but I have the ability to run more power directly either to the phone or to any other instrumentation. And I can independently control my low beam and high beam with this switch. Now, it's quite a bit of work, and it required a lot of electrical work. And I had the help of some amazing friends, Ron, Chris, Ernan, Billy, Russ, Gary, to help me figure out how all that would work. I went with the fender stiffener, so when I'm riding, my GoPro doesn't shake so much. I went with the Tusk Bark Busters handlebar guards, the aluminum spine. The handlebars I changed out to the Fly with a riser because I have short legs and a long torso. So when I'm standing, I'm able to really keep my weight and balance in a neutral position. Now, staying on top, I replaced the original speedometer with a digital TrailTech gauge. This just gives me a better picture of what's going on with the mechanical of the motorcycle and also the electrical. Gives me engine temperature, gives me trip data, and so on. I also repositioned the neutral light and the turn signal indicator to the front. I repositioned the brake cables to the front. I put in the Cogent Dynamic front heavy-duty front springs. So that is a big plus for the riding that I've been doing. The front end does not dive like the stock shocks did. Down here with wheels and hubs, I went with Warp 9 Racing, and you'll see I've got this purple scheme going here. So I went with the purple hubs and the heavy-duty spokes, nipples, and rims. These are tubed tires. Coming to the gas tank here, I've got an Acerbis, I think it's what, the 25 or 26 liter tank. That'll get me at least 200 miles. And I also put in a dual petcock there, because if my motorcycle is leaning and I'm low on gas, I can pick it up from the right side of the gas tank. I put in a plastic crash plate that seems to work good for me. The metal ones often rust and rattle. I completely modified the carburetor with a Pro Cycle Performance carburetor modification, which included a nice air fuel mixture, and I put in the performance nozzle for the carburetor. I think it's a 155, I think. Tusk shift lever. I left the peg stock down here. I've got a Cogent Dynamics. I think that's a Mojave shock, heavy duty. I've got the Warp 9 rear wheel. I think it's a 17-inch rear wheel, and the front is 21. On the rear light here, I put on a flasher, so when I hit the brakes, it does flash. And to open up the engine a little bit more so it could breathe, I put in the Yoshimura exhaust. That cut off about 6 pounds of weight. On the back here, I put in some LED turn signals because the stock turn signals interfered with my soft baggage. These are the basic and some of the extensive modifications that I did to this motorcycle.
Gearhead, tips, tools, and tank talk.
This is